You know, it's interesting. We take for granted, probably, if you're an experienced hunter, the little things that you do to make you successful. And it's those little things that can really bog someone down. They think they're unnecessary. It seems overwhelming. But when you've hunted for decades, you just do them. And I think new hunters don't realize what it takes sometimes. I talk about the percentages of spook factor. You know, that if you do this, you're going to spook deer 20% of the time, 10% of the time. And when you add up all those percentages, some hunters don't have a chance before they even go out in the woods, and that's unfortunate. So Dylan and I, we shot our second podcast the other day. We shot our third today, but it was about the little things that really matter, that add up. And of course, we go off on a lot of other tangents, and a podcast is a little bit different. But not that I don't hear, but it's a lot longer. Look forward to you guys listening to that. But we came up with a long list and discussion of the little things that matter that we're used to. And really, you can break it down to sight, sound, and scent. I talk about those are the 3 S's of a sanctuary, for example. That if your sight, your sound, your scent gets into that sanctuary, it's not a sanctuary. So how much of your property is a sanctuary, or where you hunt is a sanctuary? I want to go into the edge of that sanctuary and hunt. I don't want to walk through it. Then there's no sanctuary. You just blew out either side for 150 yards. So you can have 40 acres that has 22 acres of sanctuary. It should be all contiguous. 50% is that magical. That's that magical number you want to hit. 50% of your acres or higher. On a larger property, it should be much higher than 50%. It should be 65, 70, 75%, 80% if it's a large property, because you can dedicate more acres to deer because your access still only takes up the same amount of space, and that amount of access infringes on that area less and less. So when you think about that, sight, let's talk about that first. Some of the little things that we do. You know, movement. When I'm standing right here and I'm talking to you, I'm moving around. So when you're standing in your tree, you tend to move around a lot more. Now Dylan, he's been standing hunting. He likes to stand hunting, prefers that way, but he's been doing it and not spooking deer for a long time because he understands if there's a deer behind him and he goes like this, he's going to spook deer. First, I want to thank you guys so much for buying and trying our food plot seed blends. Now, I want to introduce to you our switchgrass blends. And I say blend because we have a southern variety and a northern variety specific to your region. We have a base seed that goes into that's specific to you. And then we have a couple of moderately height stiffening varieties within there so that we can make sure that your stand of switchgrass stays up longer. Check them out on our website. Thank you guys so much. We've sold seed now in over 40 states, and we really appreciate you trying us out. Check out our switchgrass on our site, www.whitetailhabitatsolutions.com. At the same time, you can't fidget. You can't rock back and forth. You're going to spook deer. So you're right up against a tree. You're standing. That amount of movement, sight, they can't see you. Silhouette is a huge thing. So I want to make sure that the deer don't see me silhouetted away from the tree. Because if you're standing out on the tip of your tree stand, of course it might be unsafe, but at the same time, you're away from the tree. That's where we get into tree saddle discussion, where if I'm out away from the tree, looking at the tree, and I'm silhouetted, right there you're going to spook a certain percentage of deer, as opposed to being against the tree. Because you're away from the tree, you'll spook a percentage, 10%, 15% of deer. It's not acceptable to me. Now, there's sometimes you have to use, I think a tree saddle is a really good tool. It doesn't mean it's the tool that you use, just like your toolbox in your garage. You don't use the same tool every time you fix something. There's different tools for different applications. If I was hunting public land, for example, poorly formed trees, tree saddle might be an excellent opportunity. Excellent tool to use. But on private land, when Dylan and I go in to sit, I want to get up the tree, sit down, make no noise, no movement, and I want to be against the tree. We already have 2 in the tree. We don't want to make it any worse by having 2 people not against the tree. 2 people silhouetted would be much worse. We're going to lose 1/3 of our deer probably. So think about that movement. It's where one of those little things, I like sitting down for my shot. It's not to say that I haven't had to stand and shoot, but I can do so quietly. And I can move with very little movement. And when I sit down, it's a matter of I put my bow right in front of me. I hang it on a stick or a bow hanger, literally right in front of my face, so that all I have to do is reach up, grab the handle, put my release on, and pull straight back. make the shot. I plan for my shot right here from a seated position. I can almost shoot 180 degrees. If I have to, I can stand up quietly and shoot over there, there. And it's pretty easily. I don't have to move my bow around or anything. Another thing is I like that seated shot because if I have to stand to shoot, I probably lose 20% of the deer that I'm going to shoot. And that's not acceptable to me. When I draw back, I'm not overbowed. If you have to sky draw to get your bow back, like that, and aim, you're going to spook 10% of all the deer you're after, 15%, way more than 5, because they're going to see this movement. It means you're overbowed. You need to be able to pull straight back. If you're a dude out there and you don't want to tell your friends you're shooting 65 pounds or less, so you shoot 72, but you have to sky draw, it's not a good thing. Don't let your pride get in the way, your ego, whatever, of making smart decisions and being stealthy when it comes to the woods. You're better off shooting 45 pounds as a dude and being able to pull straight back than shooting 72 and sky draw and spook half the deer. That's dumb. Don't do that. Not to mention when you're overbowed, that's the number one avenue towards bad habits, because you get tired in shooting and you make bad habits. You do things that affect your form, your release, because you're overbowed. You have too much draw weight. So lower the draw weight. Not only will you spook fewer deer, but you'll be a better shot and you'll form fewer bad habits, be able to control your bad habits even during practice. So there's a lot of things you can do. Think about that when you're moving. You're moving, making sure that deer don't see you. That could be even getting into a stand. That's part of, you go up the backside of the ridge, you start getting a tree, you climb up on the backside of the tree so they can't see you on the other side, as opposed to going over the ridge, exposing yourself, going down the face of the ridge, and then climbing up. Some of those little things make a big difference when it comes to consistently shooting whitetails. We'll just skip to number 2. There's a lot of things we can talk about in each one of these, but we'll keep moving. Number 2, sound. When you're stepping in the woods, heel to toe. Set your heel down. I have some Red Wing work boots on, right here. Red Wing work boots, steel toe. So I wear around the farm here, property. Do almost everything in them. When I step down, you hear that? It's loud. Listen to this. Did you hear that? You didn't, because I put my heel down slowly, then I roll it forward. You do that over leaves, you don't have that step, step, step. What does a deer do when it's alerting other deer? It stomps. What if you're going up your ladder? You stomp. Set your foot down. That's one form of noise that gets people in trouble. Noisy clothing, scratching against a tree, crinkling, boots that make noise. I used to talk about in the past, if you're sneaking up on your buddy and you're on concrete, you should be able to walk right up to him, behind him, with your hunting clothes on, not make a sound when you're walking, and grab the back of his neck. He won't know you're there. And that's the way you should hunt. It's interesting in all of these, you talk about if deer had guns, what would you do different? But think about it. If deer could shoot back, all of these you wouldn't even have to think about, you just do, because you don't want to be killed. We don't have that severity, obviously, for deer hunting, but if you hunt with that approach, all this becomes pretty natural. You just do it. But sound, clothing, access. How much noise do you make accessing? Can the deer hear you, see you? Access applies to everything. They can see you, hear you, smell you when you're accessing. You need to control all that when you're accessing, but sound. I believe that when it comes to sight, what's the most alarming sight to a deer? It's the form of a standing man. So again, hunting from a seated position. But sound, clothing, there's a lot of noisy clothing out there. And it seems like the more you pay for clothing, the quieter it is. Especially when it's good gear, when they're advertising good insulation, good windproofing. So I would use First Light. It's very, very quiet. Very quiet. I don't know, as far as camouflage goes, I love the First Light camo, the Spectre. It's their whitetail camo. But camo doesn't matter as much to me. I want the clothing quiet. I want the clothing to be windproof. I want to have good insulation. I want to be tighter around my sleeves for bow hunting, because I'm a bow hunter at heart. That's the bottom line. It's got to be good for bow hunting. If it was only good for gun hunting, why would I buy it? You need to bow hunt with it. Good bow hunting wear you can wear for gun hunting. So think about that sound. All the ways you can eliminate with sound. There's lots of times even you're pulling up your bow. How many times you pull up your bow, you hit a stand or step, makes a bunch of noise. Well, if you're going in the afternoon, there's a lot of times I'm trying to get in. Today when Dylan and I go in to hunt a couple specific target bucks, they could be within 100 yards of us, 50 yards, and we're at the top of the hollow. So when we go in, if I make a metallic noise and I'm bringing up my bow, Dylan makes too much noise putting his camera on, it's possible that big buck hears us 100 yards away. He's not coming in, folks. He'll know that. He'll imprint. They'll go the other way. He might even come back to that bedding area the next day if he hears that metal, if he hears that unnatural noise. That's how critical it can be. There's been times where I've literally thought I was getting in within 80 to 100 yards of a potentially target buck that I want to hunt. Maybe just the backside of the ridge from where I'm coming in. I sneak in there, I get quiet, get up to my stand, and then I make a noise, bring my bow up. I move. Go to another stand if that's an option. Or I just sit there and say, you know what, this hunt's probably ruined. And not to say that, sometimes it works out, that another buck comes by or whatever. The bottom line is it can be that critical if you make that noise. There's a lot of noisy hunters out there. They'll say, well, I didn't spook any deer. It's because they were gone 200 yards before you got there. They heard you. How many hunts have been ruined because a mature buck hears you and he's gone? Going to scent, the number one form of scent control is your stand location. You're not going to spray anything, put any gel on you, turn something on that hides your smell, your stench from that deer, that mature buck that's downwind. Not going to have anything. Now, I believe you can hide your scent or eliminate it enough when you're walking in. That scent you might leave on grass, vegetation. You can limit that, especially your step, where you have your boots clean, your legs clean, your waist clean, whatever it might be. You can get in and out, leave less of a scent trail. Maybe the deer still smells it, but it smells like it was from 2 days ago, not 20 minutes ago. So there's things you can do that with forming your scent. Your scent though, your scent cone, that downwind, if they're in that, you're in trouble. So locate your stand so they don't get in your scent. What about at your stand? When you're going up the rungs of your ladder, do you touch down here? That's at nose level for a mature buck that walks by 5 hours later and he smells your sweaty handprint? Or do you step up here? Do you avoid rubbing your legs and arms against the tree, against the stand when you're going up? You gotta think about those things. That's why I don't necessarily like changing when I get to my stand, even in these hills. I'd rather sweat it up a little bit, wear quality clothes that wick moisture, and then I get in my stand, climb up, open everything up. It's already open, but allow everything to breathe, cool down a little bit, dry out, and then zip up and hunt. I don't want to have this big giant scent pad because I change socks, change clothing, add clothing at the base of the tree. I want to get up. It's almost that panic feeling. You get to the stand, you want to get up quietly, settle in, don't move, and wait for the hunt to happen. Spring like a predator because they have no clue that you're there. Always remember, mature buck, the older bucks in the neighborhood, they're a 1 sense deer. Fawns, how many times have you had a fawn pick you out in a stand? Then they go downwind of you, and once they hear you, then they run. And they don't even run that far. But they needed 3 senses to figure out that you were danger, and then they left. If they have good training, maybe only 2 because they're with their mom. Most does, mature does, are 2 sense animals. How many times have we seen a mature doe stomping on the ground and then going downwind of you to get your scent and then taking off? Mature bucks, folks, they hear you 200 yards away. You never even know they were there. They get your scent downwind, they're gone. And the thing about them is they don't typically blow. Sometimes they do. They just turn around and walk away slowly. They melt back into the woods. So a lot of times people say, I'm not spooking anything, but they're not seeing anything because they spooked everything. Mature buck just needs 1 sense. You need to control all these areas. When it gets to the actual shot, all these percentages add up to make it so you don't get a shot. Now, when you're sky drawing, when you're making noise in the shot, that can spook deer. The easiest part of the equation should be getting a shot because you've taken care of the little things. Meaning, you've done your homework. When a deer finally comes into your realm, which could be hard or easy depending on how you're hunting, where you're hunting, and your skill level, getting the shot off because you've taken care of the little things should be the easy part. Now, we all mess up when we take a shot. We all have a fail rate. Some have a greater fail rate than others, and it can depend on the year, depend on the season. But bottom line is we all have a fail rate at the shot, but getting the shot off should be the easy part. You shouldn't be spooking deer because you're silhouetted. Once they come into range, you should be able to get your shot off almost all the time. Very, very rarely do I spook a deer. I can't remember the last time I did it in decades, where you actually spooked a deer when you're trying to make a shot. It just doesn't happen because I take care of the little things. There's things I think about in the stand. All these percentages add up. You know, if you have to stand up to shoot, you might spook deer 25% of the time. If you're silhouetted, if they can see you outside of the tree, you're going to spook deer 10, 15, 20% of the time. If you make a lot of noise, if your arrow makes noise drawn back, if you have to sky draw, you kind of get the picture. There's a lot of little things we haven't even mentioned here. Again, I urge you to listen to that second podcast from Dylan and I. Jeff and Dylan talk deer. But, you know, really look at all these little things. And these are what make consistently successful hunters successful. They might even choose the bad weather to go out. They might hunt more than they should, but they're an actual predator when they're in the woods. And that makes up for a lot of bad decisions if you're hunting smart, meaning that you're taking into account all these little things. Folks, the little things matter. And unfortunately, until you do these a few times and spook a lot of deer, sometimes people just have to learn the hard way. You know, there's people that literally touch the boiling pot one time, know it's hot, and don't do it again. There's other people that touch it 4 or 5 times. The bottom line is you eventually stop. We're trying to bring these little things out right here, right now, for you to help you advance the learning curve. That's the whole idea with this channel, whether it's making decisions, how you work with your habitat, how you hang your stands, how you hunt nocturnal bucks, how you use your trail cameras, how you determine which stands to go in at what time of the day, time of the year, how you navigate the rut, how you navigate the rut through HuntCast on HuntWise, HuntCast making you on HuntWise. I helped develop both of those and have worked extensively with both of those to help you make good decisions and avoid some of the mistakes that we've made. I'm going to ask Dylan real quick. Out of all these little things right here, I probably missed some. We talked for an hour the other day on these.
Yeah.
And can you think of some of those that anything that jump out at you? Or
I'm fanatical about like the sound, man. Like I tape everything. I'm very careful to, you know, even with
you mentioned that your camera gear, taping them with a soft tape.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what kind of tape, because others might want to do that.
I use cloth friction tape, it's called, and it wraps around stuff really nice, and it has like a good like piney smell to it. I think they use like pine pitch or something on it.
Yeah.
So, like, doesn't stink, doesn't smell like chemicals. It's black, and
it's very pleasant in the tree stand.
Yeah, it dampens sound. I love it.
Yeah. And that's where Dylan, you know, what's interesting is I film with several people, or they film me in the tree stand, and it's, Dylan's very stealthy. Dante, that films with my stepson, he's very stealthy. There's some people that just have that in them. And, you know, of course, Dylan hunted. Did you tell me your first lease was when you were 13?
Yeah.
When your family lease.
Previous to that.
Right. But I mean, you guys you're 31 now. You've been hunting leases for 18 years.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you're serious enough to go find good hunting. Your dad made that, your father made that a priority.
Right.
You and your brother Carson, and but that was something that was important back then. And so you really baptism by fire at an age of 31, just because look at how many times you've sat with other people, let alone for yourself. I mean, you've sat dozens and dozens of times per season, whether it's for yourself or others. And you get used to not spooking deer, whether it's being quiet, not being seen, or not stinking. What have you found out with smell? I mean, really, if a deer, I
try and keep my clothes as fresh as possible. I do spray my boots and legs down as much as I can, but if a deer gets downwind of you, it's going to smell you, no matter what you've done.
Yeah.
Unless your thermals are, helping you, you don't know it. I don't think you can fool a deer.
We had one. And I wouldn't say we're stinky going out in the woods. He was using clean clothes. We dress outside in Rubbermaids. We spray down. But we had a buck go by us our first sit this year. He looked like he's 2-3 years old. You can make a debate for either way. But he came in from behind us on our right, which was where we thought our scent was blowing. Our scent was blowing to the right. He went basically 5 yards away. Then he went in front of us to the left. And then he went behind us and kind of made a U around us. And if we were using something, we would say, wow, that worked and hit our scent. But I think our scent blew over him at some point. Yeah. Our thermals are taking the scent downhill at another point. And bottom line is we weren't doing anything special to make him not smell us downwind. But if we were, it would have been very deceiving. I think that happens a lot.
I think that happens a lot.
If we would have had a scent contraption machine, we would have said, hey, we swear by that. And there's been other times like that too. Mm-hmm. Deer are downwind of you and you think they're downwind, but because of thermals and the way it's moving, through the hills or along various forms of habitat or ditches or berms, It can be very deceiving, let alone some of those mature bucks come in. And that's how, people, there's a certain percentage of those people that they don't have a chance when they go out in the woods, but then they shoot deer, and especially bucks during the rut, and it's because they literally, that buck's running through rut crazed, and you can throw all this out the window sometimes, and everyone gets lucky and gets a deer. So we want to talk about consistent hunting, and if you follow the advice of these little things and build on them, learn to trust them, you can become a consistent whitetail hunter this season and beyond. I urge everyone out there to really check out my web classes. They've been wildly successful. We have one that details how you should design your land, another one that details how you should plant and maintain and manage a food plot program. How can you make those decisions that fit your land specifically and not someone else's? Unfortunately, there's so much information in the hunting industry that says you should do this, but it doesn't apply to you. These web classes directly apply to you. And then we have our third web class that came out last year, Rut Web Class, navigating the entire rut. And then we have our fourth one coming out, which is hunting hills and thermals. I urge you to check those out, try the web classes, and they're all about teaching, helping you understand how you can navigate, not only managing your property, food plots, and the rut, but also hunting strategically, hills, thermals, and wherever you pursue whitetails for your dream and your passion.